morning, everyone. This is our People's Matter show. Today we have a special guest, Stephen Meadows, COO of Coldwell Banker Premier. Stephen, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. Good to have you in the show. We're going to talk about different topics: real estate, investments, merger and acquisitions, because I know that you have some experience in that. But tell us about you and your experience. How did you actually got involved in real estate? Tell us about your history or your basically your experience in real estate and how you became basically to become one of the leaders in the East Coast, one of the most successful actually real estate companies in the Northeast Coast for Coldwell Banker.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, first of all. I actually started in real estate after selling a stereo to a real estate broker in my hometown when I was working at Big Lots when I
Okay.
was 17 years old. And from there, I left Big Lots and went to work for that brokerage as her admin, got my license, went to college, decided, I don't know if I'll do real estate very long. And then I started making money. Whenever I wasn't in school, like on a break, I would actually start selling houses. I'm like, okay, maybe real estate's kind of a fun thing to do. So, I did various things in real estate in Michigan, where I'm originally from. And then when the recession hit back in like 2005, 2006, I moved to Tennessee where I had family, and I got on a foreclosure team down in Nashville and rode the foreclosure wave during the Great Recession because it was slower to hit Tennessee than it was. Michigan got hit first. And so I kind of left ahead of the wave. Sold foreclosures for several years, absolutely loved it. Wouldn't do it again. It's not fun anymore, but it was really fun back then. And then I got into home warranty sales and then brand management through Coldwell Banker. So I was hired by the national franchise of Coldwell Banker to be a franchise liaison. And then I went into franchise sales and was trained on mergers and acquisitions and those things. And then finally, my now CEO hired me away from corporate about 5 years ago to come grow his company. And that's what I've been doing. So I no longer list and sell. I still have three
Mhm.
licenses, but I don't use them. I'm strictly focused on operations and growth strategy, all that good stuff. Basically, the way I see my role is I keep the wheels on the bus so that the agents can go make money. That's my role.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk about making money. And when I was reading about you, one of the things that you have done in the past, and you've done it really well for your business, for your company, is that you have been able to orchestrate mergers and acquisitions. Can you tell us about what typically, how's that work? Explain us about the process. What is it that typically you see when you're gonna, merge or acquire? What's the difference between merging and acquiring? And just tell us a little bit of some examples that you went through in your experience.
Sure. So, just like any business, real estate owners, brokerage owners may need an exit strategy sometime. Either they're aging out or they don't like it anymore, or there's personal or financial or medical reasons. And so there are folks out there like myself who will reach out and try to build rapport and just kind of I would tell people, I just want to be in your Rolodex. Like if when the time comes, I want to be one of the people that you call. So if your situation changes, my company's buying, let's talk. And so some of these deals take years. I mean, we have a company right now we've been talking to for 4.5 years. Maybe someday we'll do something. I don't know. I mean, we're
Oh,
friends now, but I
oh,
mean,
years.
it just never I feel like we're in the friend zone, unfortunately. But some of these deals just fall in your lap and they happen in a couple of months, and other deals take years to cultivate. But we've done a series of them. We started in 22. We did three in the first quarter of 22. I would not recommend that many acquisitions at one time. The acquisition part was easy. It was the transition and the onboarding that was the challenge. Thankfully, two of those three companies were actually other Coldwell Banker affiliates. That makes it a lot easier because I don't have to also sell the value of the brand. They already understand that. That we just have to talk about our strength as a company. But we went from 5 offices when I was hired in 2020 to now today we have 21 offices in the Mid Atlantic region, and we will be opening a new branch office shortly. We're just securing the lease on it, so we'll go up to 22 offices here shortly. In 5 different states. We're licensed in other states, but we have brick and mortar in 5 states. So we kind of looked at it strategically of like where can we strengthen our company. So it wasn't just go out there and grab anything we can get our hands on. It was very what what does this company have that we don't have, or what do they do better than us, or where could we add some value? We have somewhere, we did the deal, but we just kind of stayed status quo. It's not our best option. We don't like to do that, but thankfully that market was a very stable market, and it's done really well for us. But we would have preferred to have grown it, and so there are some times where you make an acquisition for cash flow. You're like, don't touch it, just leave it. It's making money. And then there's others where you can make some good you can make good efficiencies where you can either cut costs. Like for instance, we did one. They had a $40,000 a year phone bill. Well, we used
Wow.
IP systems that cost it was like $3,000 compared to 40. So those are efficiencies, and when you get larger, you can do those types of things. And say, I can save you a fortune. Like I don't need 5 accounting people. I only need 2. And so there's a lot of these things that you can come in and just clean up, and it
Right.
naturally just works better. And then we've been able to expand our mortgage company, our property management division. All of that has grown along with the brokerage growth, and it's been really fun to put together. The
So when you're looking to acquire, you look at their expenses, if they're making money or not. You look at the area if it's an area that you can grow in, and so you done 10, 15 different acquisitions in the last few years. What is the number?
So as a company, we've done 8, and then I have
8.
consulted on another 5 or 6, I think it was. So I've done probably, we'll call it a dozen or 12 to 15. I've had my hands in. We've done, I think,
Right.
8 as a company.
Awesome. So in on those, when you're looking at those areas, profitability, potential growth, and obviously you look at the business overall, normally when you have to evaluate, when you have to put a money symbol, what's normally how do you evaluate the value of that investment? How do you know how much to offer, basically?
So the easiest way is a multiple of EBITDA. So for those, I will dumb it down for people who don't know accounting. I'm not an accountant. EBITDA is essentially net income. So we basically look at the bottom line, and there's a whole process. You have to normalize the P&L, and you have add backs and adjustments and things like that. You want to be fair. If someone is paying for their car through the company, I would obviously give them credit back for that because that's not an expense that we're going to keep carrying. So they would get that as an add back, and that makes their net income go up.
Yeah.
So then we basically apply a number, it's called a multiple, to
Right.
that EBITDA. So, quick numbers, let's say you're making $100,000 net income, and I want to offer you a 2.5 multiple. That means your company is essentially worth $250,000. Now, that does not mean I'm writing you a $250,000 check. That's not going to happen. If you are looking for a cash buyer, you can expect probably about a 40% discount on the price. Cash
Okay.
buyers it's not a cash market right now. We don't pay cash. We do an earnout. So you have to stay with the company, and you have to help us stabilize and grow and all that. And the nice thing is some of these brokerages, it's not that the broker is aging out, it's just that I'm burnt out with running the company. I still want to see it grow. I still want to help make it succeed. I just don't want to have to sit here every day and pump my own money and time into it. So in those cases, we can give them some of the upside that we're going to get. So essentially I can say, as we grow, your out will increase. So you can
Right.
you can go along with us. Or if you tell me you're not interested in doing that, fine, then I will not offer that incentive, and I structure it a little bit differently. It's usually designed to keep the owner in place, and then it pays out over time.
So in today's industry, because this is a competitive industry as well, I'm assuming that sometimes you are competing against other brokers that are trying to acquire. What is the multiple average right now? Is it 2.5? That's the average?
I would say it's in the twos. Yeah. If you're really valuable, like got a really clean P&L, good cash flow, you might squeeze a 3 out of somebody. Back in the day, like early, I would say late 2000 teens, so like maybe 18, 19, Compass and Coldwell Realty, they were out there buying companies at 6 multiple. It was
Oh,
ridiculous.
wow.
They were just throwing cash around. It was stupid, really overvaluing, and then that bubble burst. I actually did an article a couple years ago, and I said it was to sellers. It was like you missed your chance. Like you're now on the
Right.
downslope. This is a buyer's market right now for brokerages.
Not a lot of people want to be in the real estate industry right now, especially with the interest rates
Right.
and no inventory, especially in the on the Northeast. Uh, so I see that you guys have done a great job as a business to have multiple divisions. You have real estate. You just mentioned that you have mortgage. What other divisions do you have?
So we have real estate, residential, commercial, property management, foreclosures, auction, pretty much anything that has to do with real estate sales. And then we have our mortgage company. We have a title company. We're working on insurance as another ancillary service, and then we have some other partnerships out there that offer services to clients as well. So we like to say if it has to do with real estate, we probably touch it.
Very good. Mortgage has been tough for everyone. You have the benefit that you control the buyer side and the listing side if you are representing the buyer or the listing. But how's it been on the mortgage side for you guys? Typically, not a lot of people are good as an owner. Not a lot of people, not companies are good at converting the real estate side into the mortgage side. How are you doing with that?
About average, probably. Unfortunately, it's a source of contention, between myself, my CEO, and our mortgage manager. He's done a great job building the mortgage company. We've really beefed it up. There was, I think, 3 loan officers when I started. Now we have 20, 21 or
Oh,
something.
wow.
Yeah, my recruiter has done an amazing job with that. But I keep pushing. Why aren't we getting more business from Coldwell Banker? Like, why aren't the agents
All
using you
right.
guys more?
Right.
And it's this whole like, well, no one's ever in the office. Well, what are you doing to get? It's a constant back and forth. But the loan officers are doing a good job of going out and getting other business, which is good because we don't want them just relying on
Right.
us. As
Right.
my CEO would say, I don't want to be fully responsible for the real estate and the mortgage side. Like they need to be able to operate on their own.
Independent.
So
Yeah.
if the mortgage company can't stand on its own 2 feet, it can't stand on its own 2 feet. The nice thing is we're a broker and a lender, so we have like 50 different programs. It's ridiculous. Like if we can't do the loan, it probably shouldn't be done.
Right.
It gives us an advantage, but it also is a double-edged sword because then the agents tend to just give us the crummy deals and not the good stuff. They don't give us the A paper. They give those to the lender that bought them coffee last week. We get all the crap that nobody else can convert, or the credit score is too low or whatever. We do it, we save the deal, but then we don't get rewarded with the easy stuff. Like
Right.
give me somebody with an 800 credit score and 20% down once in a while.
Yeah. The relationships matter for a lot of realtors, and that's why they have their own relations with in the mortgage side, and that's why a lot of people don't want to give you the business on the lender side. And what have you done as a company to engage and to grow your business on both sides? I mean, this is a tough market right now. I mean, everyone is struggling on the mortgage side and the real estate side. I heard on the news. In talking about acquisitions that Encompass was trying to buy Berkshire Hathaway, and then that fell apart. Seems that it's not going through. And then there was some other news about Encompass trying to buy Anywhere, which Anywhere obviously they said that's not true. Everyone is trying to buy everywhere as much as they can with the industry so down. Have you seen that lately? Is it easier to buy? I mean, and to acquire other businesses? or is it harder right now?
I would say it's easier. I should say the conversations are easier to have. It's, the process is, it is what it is. The challenge is actually kind of funny. On one hand, you don't really want them to have a high net income, because then if obviously it's a less valuable company. It's not going to cost as much. But I'd say the majority of companies right now are running in the red.
Right. Yeah.
Unfortunate that, I turned to my boss the other day. I'm like, one of these days it'd be great to find someone with positive cash flow, but you're going to spend a lot of money on those companies.
Yes.
Cash flow is a commodity at this point. And people must say, well, I mean, how can a company run in the red constantly? It's because the owner keeps putting their own money into it. That's what happens in real estate. And a lot of owners need to be honest with themselves and ask, like, do I want to keep doing this? Like, do I really want to keep putting my personal money into this company to keep the lights on? Or should I let it be somebody else's problem? And that's kind of what we bring to the table. Is like, you can have a team, you can bring all your people over. I don't care. We'll figure it out. Like, let us take the operational lift off of you. Because that's what's bogging a lot of brokerage owners down, is just operations. It's, I got to pay the bills. I'm the chief cook and bottle washer. I have to do absolutely everything. I got to fill the paper in the copy machine and da 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 da. And it's like, and most of them have to be the top producer in the office just to keep the lights on. I gotta keep selling real estate just so my friends can have a place to work. Like, what kind of model is that? So it's easier to have those conversations now because they're getting frustrated.
This,
But
this
it's
thing,
harder to justify the acquisition when it's like, oh, now I'm taking on another company that's losing $50,000, and that one's losing 50,000, that one's losing 100,000. It's like, at some
yeah.
point you have to make money too.
So for those companies out there and those owners out there and the real estate world that they're thinking about, stepping down or at least selling their business, what message would you send them? What would you tell them to have a conversation with you, for example? What value would you bring into them? Just let's assume that you have an audience right now and someone is watching you. Why would you want to talk to them, or why would they want to talk to you in regards to uh, acquisitions or
So
mergers?
I'll have two answers to that. One is, if you are a brokerage within our geographic footprint, I would absolutely love to talk to you just to see if there's any synergies. Let's just have a friendly conversation, and if it goes nowhere, it goes nowhere. It's confidential. I never use that information against anybody. We are not an aggressive company. I've never broken confidentiality, and recruited their agents away or anything like that. Let's just have a conversation. Let me see if I can take your pain away. Maybe I can't. I mean, there's times where it's like, we want different things. Like, I'm not the solution to your problem. Anybody else, I would say, let's talk, because there are a lot of buyers out there. Or if you're a buyer looking to grow, we can talk too. Again, it's confidential, it's free, it's not going to cost you anything to have a conversation, figure out if now's the time to buy, now's the time to sell, what's your strategy. I'm working with several brokerages right now that are selling, and I love working with either side. I personally love structuring the deal, so I like structuring it from the buyer side, because I'm usually on the buyer side. But when I'm working with a seller, I'm very honest about their value with them, and it's not usually what they want. I mean, it's usually a lot lower. It's like taking something into a coin shop thinking you're going to get full value, and they're like, I'll give you $20. You're like, you're like, well, that's what it's worth. And then, I actually had a friend ask me one time. He said, so you're going to tell this seller that their company's worth half of what they think it's worth. Why would they want to work with you as a consultant? I said, because if they don't work with me, then they're going to be negotiating against somebody like me on the other side. You need representation. If you're thinking about doing this, don't do it alone. You need somebody that can at least navigate the process. It's not difficult, but there's just a lot of steps, and there's just a certain way of doing these things. It's just good to talk to somebody. Talk to somebody that's done it a few times. If you decide you want to go on your own, go for it. You'll find somebody. I mean, there's a lot of
Right.
players out there.
Coldwell Banker. I mean, great company, long history, a lot of tradition. What normally do you tell people about the value that you guys provide to any anyone that you guys acquiring?
So for us, it's twofold. It's the brand value and our company's value. So from the brand perspective, it's the oldest franchise in the country. It's a recognizable name. In most markets, you say Coldwell Banker, people know what you're talking about. As I used to say when I was in franchise sales, Coldwell Banker opens doors. I would have brokers agree to meet with me just because I was Coldwell Banker. They didn't want to hear what, Remax or whatever anybody else had to say. But they're like, I'll listen to you. Not that they were interested necessarily in buying a franchise. They just wanted to hear what Coldwell Banker had to say. And so that name has a lot of value. And it's that name of my sister sold her house in Phoenix with a Coldwell Banker agent. True story. We had a walk in one of our Delaware offices because the lady saw the Coldwell Banker sign and said, "Oh, I'm looking for a house and my sister used Coldwell Banker." So it's nice to have that recognition. You can't really put a price tag on that. The branding is something we couldn't spend enough money for the branding of Coldwell Banker. But it also comes with a lot of tech and tools that are very helpful. But then we focus more on what we bring as a company. The support, we're a very heavily staffed company, which can be good and bad. When you have 50 employees, it presents challenges.
Oh,
We have a 1-to-6 staff to agent ratio, which is probably one of the highest or lowest, whichever way you look at it, in the industry. I mean, we 50 staff people to 300 agents. It's kind of crazy, but that's across all of our departments. But that brings a lot of value to the table because I can solve a lot more problems because I have more hands. And so if a brokerage is telling me we're really struggling with marketing, oh, well, I have an entire marketing team and this is what we do. Oh, we're struggling to get leads. Well, here's an entire lead gen system that we have in place. So it's solution selling, I guess. We talk through it and figure out what's your biggest pain point. Most of the time it's personal. It's not usually a business problem that they can't solve. They're wanting to
right.
sell because I just don't want to do this anymore, or I can't afford to, or whatever. It's not geez, if I could just figure out lead gen, I'd stay in business. It's never just one thing.
Right,
It's
right.
usually more of I want to help solve your personal problem. Like, I want you to live a better life while still taking care of your agents. Can we do that? If you don't think that what I've laid out for you is going to make your life better and your agent's lives better, then we have nothing else to talk about. And it's been nice to meet you. And that's fine.
Right. Absolutely. You've been doing this for a lot of years. You met a lot of entrepreneurs, but a lot of people are also jumping into the real estate industry right now. A lot of young kids that, they're excited about it. They don't know what to expect. What would you tell those kids, those young guys that are coming out there in their 20s, jumping into real estate? Because you've seen it all. You've been in this for a while. What would you tell them about, should they open a broker shop right away? When is it convenient to open a broker shop, to have their own brokerage? Which is one of the questions a lot of people ask. And should they just participate and just be their own team and just market their own team? What are the benefits of each? Obviously, we understand risks, but tell us more about, what would you tell a young guy trying to be entrepreneur and trying to grow out there in the real estate world, especially with all these changes today?
So anytime someone tells me they're going to open a brokerage, my first question is why? Why do you want to do that? Because the problem is that most people have an incorrect perception of running a brokerage. The joke is they don't, the reason they call us brokers is because we're broker than most. It's not, you don't do it for the money. We've talked about this a lot. This is a thankless job, especially operations. Real estate operations is absolutely thankless. Everything's your fault. And I'm not complaining. I mean, it's the path I've chosen. Everything's your fault. If it breaks, it's your problem. You got to fix it. Same thing with being the broker. It's not something you do because it's highly lucrative. Yes, you can make a good living being a real estate broker, but most of the time your agents will make more money than you. So it's just like in any sales organization, the top performer makes more than the management. So for some people that's a struggle because, they're like, I'm working really hard and I'm watching you walk out the door with $400,000 and I'm kicking in 50 grand just to pay the bills. That doesn't seem very fair. that's brokerage. Welcome. I feel like a lot of people think it's, oh, this is going to be so much fun and I get to keep all the money. Or they'll say, oh, I'm at a 90-10 split. I'm just going to go open my own place. If you think you can run a business on 10%, be my guest. Or they'll think, oh, I'll be able to recruit everybody because I'm a great recruiter. If that's the case, I'll just hire you to be my recruiter. So you have to have the right reason to do it. Teams, now that's a totally different story. There's a new thing called teamerage. Not new, it's been a couple years as the buzzword, teamerage. It's like basically being a brokerage within a brokerage. Those I do see some merit in. We're not a team heavy company just because we try to provide a lot of the services from the brokerage side, whereas teams tend to be self-sufficient and they don't need a lot from their brokerage. What they want is compliance, they want business coaching, and they want branding, usually are the three top things that a team wants. So I would say if you're an entrepreneur, focus on building your own business first. If you're brand new to the business, ignore the grumpy old, or not even old, just ignore the grumpy veterans. I would count myself as a grumpy veteran. 24 years in the business. I have a very cynical view of real estate. I still think it's a great industry. I think it's a lot of fun, but it's not like HGTV. It's not, like $1 million listing. You're not flying in a helicopter and all these. It's a grind. I hate that word. I can't believe I even just said that. I absolutely hate the term grind because I happen to enjoy what I do. I don't consider it a grind, but real estate is a constant, it's just a constant prospect. It's not as glamorous as it's portrayed on TV, unfortunately, but it's still a great industry. So I don't want to be a naysayer, but I will say it's not what you think it will be. Just know that. If you're getting into business, you need to lower your expectations a little bit. There's going to be some bumps, but if you get the right people behind you, you'll be fine. But don't listen to the water cooler talk. The young folks probably won't even know what water cooler talk is anymore. Just because it didn't work for Billy Bob back in '92 doesn't mean it's not going to work for you.
But you have to be a grinder. I mean, you have to.
Okay. Yeah, you got to hustle. You will be outworked. You absolutely will be outworked by somebody else if you're not out there doing it, period.
I think that the last time I looked at the number, there was over 3 million real estate agents in the U.S.
Yeah, it's I thought the number was in the 2,000 or the 2 million, 2 point something million range real estate licensees overall. It may have gotten up that high. I know it was like 1.7 million realtors, I think. Because of course there's a difference between a realtor and a real estate agent.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
What I think is really interesting is that 74% of realtors didn't sell a single house last year. That's the statistic that is extremely shocking. So of 1.7 million realtors, 3/4 of them didn't make a dime selling real estate. So if you're a buyer or seller,
I think that the average was what, like less than 2 transactions, like 1.2 transactions a year per realtor.
It's bad. Well, and I mean, of course, last year was the lowest number of house sales since, oh gosh, I think the 90s or the early 2000s. It's been like 20 years. We're at like a 20-year low, but a all-time high of realtors or agents having licenses. I mean, those two things. I mean, that means that a lot of people aren't making any money. We bought a company in a market that had 10,000 realtors in it, or 10,000 agents listed, and did 25,000 sales. So that means even if everybody sold one, that everybody participated evenly, that's only 2.5 deals a person. Nobody can make any money on that. So, there's a lot of zeros. A lot of folks not doing any work. You've got to be that 25% that's actually out there getting the business, or else you're just going to fade away. The failure rate in real estate has gone up drastically in the last few years because I think partly is because they glamorize it. I think it's this, oh, and here's the kitchen. That's not how, like, we know what a kitchen is. Like, you're not Vanna White pointing out features of a home. You're doing a transaction. This is a business transaction. This isn't like oh, this is so fun. No, we're going to pick out curtains. That's part of the process, but that's not the realtor's job. That is, the realtor has to make sure that you're getting the deal you need and that the paperwork is on point and that you're not getting screwed over by the other side. And there's just so much to it.
So how are you dealing with these new rules that took effect? I think it was last year, after all of these changes that you have to disclose how much is the buyer going to have to pay in commissions. Do you see an impact on the buyer side? Is it more difficult to sell it because most buyers are used to have the listing pay for the commission? How's that turn for you guys? How do you deal with that?
So we were concerned in the beginning that we were going to be losing a lot of business on the buyer side or losing commissions, just commission compression. We haven't seen it yet, which is nice. I mean, I think it's coming. You know, it's an obvious, it's a foregone conclusion. We will see the commissions coming down. But what we're actually seeing is the listing side commissions going up. Now that the two have been separated, we've decoupled. Now an agent can go in and they're not sitting at the table talking about, I'll have to say apples, not percentages. You know, they're not talking in terms of 5 or 6 apples. They're only talking about 3 apples or 2.5 apples. And so they're able to get a three apple, you know, package more easily than they could before. You know, when it was, oh, it's going to be 6 and I'm going to split it in half. I'll do it for 5. And, you know, so we're actually seeing the listing side doing better. We haven't seen the erosion on the buyer side yet, but I think it's because a lot of agents just aren't embracing the new rules yet. Obviously, it's not in the MLS. You can't publish the compensation, and we just keep telling our agents, negotiate it. Just negotiate. If someone asks how much they're going to offer, just say, write us an offer. We will negotiate compensation. The seller is prepared that you might be asking for this. And the best analogy that I heard actually came from my boss, and he said it's kind of like, you know, offering a refrigerator. You know, they may not care about the refrigerator, so the fact that you've just offered it, you know, up front, now you're giving something away that never had to be given away. Either
Right.
you could have just kept that, and if they want the fridge, they can ask, and we can say, okay, we'll throw in a new fridge or we'll credit you. But if you just offer it, then there goes like, well, I don't need the fridge, but I'll take $5,000. Man, they didn't need the fridge. I could have kept my mouth shut and we could have saved $5,000. It's the same thing on compensation. If you want to go, oh, the seller's willing to pay 2.5 apples. What if the buyer's agent would have settled for 2? You just gave away more of your seller's money than was necessary. So make the buyer's agent negotiate. I'm not saying that they're not worth it, but it's part of the negotiations now. It's all in the package together. How much closing costs goes to this, goes to that, goes to compensation, whatever.
Do you see in some of your markets that the actual buyer is paying the commission
Yes.
to the buyer's agent?
Yeah, we do have some of that. Or I've got an agent that she holds her commission at this level, and no matter what, she gets it. So if the seller comes in less, the buyer pays the difference, and she has no problem doing that, and her buyers have no problem doing that. She explains her value.
Right.
Bravo, you know, and we're also seeing transaction fees being a much bigger portion of the compensation. So, like a listing agent may go out and take we've been seeing traditionally anywhere from $395 to $495. We're seeing $7 to $995 now in some markets, where it's, you know, call it a base commission, a transaction fee, anything like that. We're seeing that number go up quite a bit, but then maybe the percentage is a little bit lower. So agents are just getting more creative with how they do it. I mean, we've even toyed with like an a la carte type situation where you basically choose the services you want. You know, problem is you have conflicting rules. So, you know, NAR is saying you can't do these things. The MLSs are saying over here something a little different. And then you got states like just this morning, Alabama passed some law about buyers can tour houses without an agency contract. Okay, wasn't that part of the NAR settlement? So how does the state law now square with NAR regulations? No, I mean, NAR is just a trade organization. They're not a legislative body.
Right.
So there's just a lot of uncharted waters ahead. And so we're just kind of telling our agents, just keep doing it the way we're telling you to do it until it changes. You know, but we came out very quickly and we're like, just forget the old way. Stop trying to square peg the round hole. Just that way is dead. This is the way we have to do business now. Just embrace it.
Steven, I'm going to switch topics, and this is for brokers in general that are trying to increase or grow their revenue somehow. Affiliate services is normally a way to go. How complicated or easy have you seen that? And what would you what would be the advice that would you give to those brokers in regards to the different alternatives of affiliate services out there?
Well, I would say the easiest one tends to be a mortgage or a title. Title joint venture is the easiest way to go with that. The struggle is certain states are attorney states where you have to have an actual attorney doing the closing versus a title state. So attorney states are a little more difficult because you have that third party involved, unless you're just going to joint venture with an actual attorney. But in other states, it's actually pretty easy as long as you can get your capture rate up, because you do have to fund this joint venture. It's not like you can just have some fake thing. They've cracked down on that. So now each party has to write checks to fund this JV. And so you do have to make sure that your agents are on board. But that's where some teams would help. Like I've seen brokerages bring their team leaders in on their joint ventures to some extent to basically say your team can share, you're a part owner of this joint venture, so that will make sure that that team's business will be pumping through that entity. That could work. I'm not necessarily a big proponent of that because then you have a lot of hands in the cookie jar. But hey, if it gets the numbers up, great. Mortgage, a lot of people just try to go for an MSA, market service agreement, where it's I'm just going to pay you rent or whatever. Here's the thing: a mortgage company offers you 500, $1,000 a month. That's nothing. They make way more than that on one transaction. We own a mortgage company. I don't recommend going out and just opening a mortgage company, but there are ways to partner with mortgage companies that are better than just them paying you a check. Everybody just wants that money. Oh, I want that. Well, think about it this way. Like this is what we've tried to build is what if my mortgage company was a source of lead generation for your brokerage that you could then monetize to your agents? What if my mortgage company was sending you business that you can refer to your agents for 25% or whatever? Now you're making a lot more money than me writing you a check for $1,000 to rent a desk. And it's legal. I mean, I'm just giving you business. I'm not giving you money. I'm not paying you. I'm saying, hey, I have a qualified buyer. I'm giving him to you. You do what you want with it. So I think getting outside the box a little bit and figuring out, how to leverage some of these services can go far. Like insurance, everybody wants to, oh, what about insurance? Insurance is great after a few years. It takes some time to build the annuity up. You get like this much money in the first year, but then you get that same amount every year that they renew, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. You're not making anything off of it in the first probably 2 years. So don't think you're going to just go out and strike gold in 6 months opening an insurance company or teaming up with one. It's not going to happen. But you can also buy existing companies. So if let's say, oh, I'm gonna go buy an insurance company. I'm gonna buy a title company. Well, go for it. That could work. There's some regulatory stuff that may change with the CFPB potentially being dismantled. So I don't know where that goes. If you don't feel like you can do ancillary services, then I would look at monetized lead gen within a brokerage. That's the first thing I would look at doing if I've got to make money is figuring out how I can sell business to my agents. Am I better at generating leads than they are? Probably. So can I make it so that those leads are more valuable to them that they're willing to pay for? So that's what we've done. We've built an entire lead gen system where we incubate and all this stuff, and it makes money. It's not as much as we like, it pays the bills. I should say it pays its bills, and it does a nice job. But it can be better. It's one of those. A smaller brokerage could probably pull this off pretty easily. We're just so spread out. It's like bits here and there. But if a smaller brokerage could concentrate their forces, I think a monetized lead gen strategy could be very lucrative for the bottom.
Technology obviously is the topic of conversation in most industries. However, the real estate industry is one of those industries that's always behind. And realtors, they're not the best at adopting technology. And what have you seen that is actually working for you guys in regards to technology?
We have had great success with online lead gen. So, like Facebook, social media, we actually hired a company to build the ads for us and handle it all. And it's just been phenomenal. Like we do it for our open houses, and in a year's time, or maybe it's year to date, it was like 500,000 impressions on these open house ads, and it was like almost, it was like 40. I'll say 4,300 leads it generated for the listing agents for free. Like we don't charge for this product. That's been amazing. So that's not necessarily a certain piece of technology, but that is us leveraging, tech that's out there. For us, or for me personally, I find the data analytic tools are very helpful. Like I'm looking at the real estate market from a very granular point of view, and I'm looking at like things like market share and listing inventory and things like that, and trying to find leading indicators to figure out where's the market going. Instead of looking back 45 days, I want to be able to call it 2 weeks ahead, like we're not going to have a good month. Our listings taken is way down, so this is going to affect us in 60 days. Tools, analytic tools out there are getting better and better. Where you can take unstructured data and just AI can just make it sing and dance. So I would say companies that are leveraging AI and data analytics tools are going to get more traction, because I think you're going to see that trickle down to like teams. They're going to want to see metrics, and they're going to want to look at conversions, and a good brokerage or team is going to look at their numbers, and they need tools that can help them do that, because then the data is all over the place. But for an agent, I would say anything that allows you to boil down boring market statistics to make it where a layperson can go, okay, yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you for that. I always tell people, be a resource. They don't care about you. They don't want to read your bio. They want to know how much their house is worth, how much their neighbor's house sold for, what are the interest rates, all that kind of stuff. So give them that information. Tons of different programs, with click, 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 and now I've got a market report, or I've got a CMA or whatever for this house. I can say, hey, these 9 different aggregators say your house is worth anywhere from here to here. Ooh, but to really know, I'd have to come and see it. When can I, you leverage those tools. So I would say that's the kind of information people want right now is the value. They want to know how much. What do I need to do to raise the value? Should I sell now? Should I wait? And so anything that we can do as an industry to make it, I don't want to say dumb it down, but make it more digestible to them, it's a win. We
Right.
need to be able to present the information to the consumer. I think realtors make the mistake of thinking everybody understands real estate, and they really don't. If you're not in real estate, you don't think about it. It's like a once every 7 to 10 year transaction that you don't think about it until it's time. So
Right.
don't make the mistake of thinking everybody understands absorption rate and expired, and they don't know what those words mean. Come on, dumb it down.
So finally let's just go into forecast. You mentioned it already. Where do you see the industry going in the next couple of years? Just what's your hinge? I mean, what is your thoughts about it? I know every market is different. The Northeast is hot. Is really hot still. The South West is not as hot. I'm talking about Vegas, Phoenix, Texas, Florida, actually very slow. But what do you see in the next 12 to 24 months happening with all of these inventory issues in some places, the interest rates, and what is your take?
Well, my biggest concern locally is the government changes. So, like the return to work orders. We're based around DC, so most of our markets we're feeder markets for the DC area. So we had a lot of people that moved out to these rural areas during COVID, and now they're being called back to DC. That's a good thing. That means our inventory is going to finally loosen up a little bit. But then you have your entire departments that are being threatened to be closed or whatever. How much can the private sector absorb of that? And then will that create an inventory issue? Do I think DC is going to have a housing crisis? No.
Okay.
Overall, I think the movement will be good for us, because so many people are locked into these low interest rates that they're just not willing to sell until they're forced to.
Right.
Our position has been, for the last 2 years at least, people are only moving if they have to move. So we're focusing on life event marketing. That's what we're shooting for, is is finding the trigger points: death, divorce, disability. It's all D's, diamonds, diapers, dumpsters, any of those things. You go after those trigger points because life goes on. You may love your interest rate, but if you're going to get divorced or you're having another kid and the house just isn't going to work anymore, you got to move. It sucks, but you got to. And so those are the people we have to get in front of. So I think the market will I'm not expecting a housing recession per se. I do have some concerns about the new construction industry. If tariffs actually become an issue, who knows? It's a we're getting whiplash at this point. But you got lumber, aluminum, all these building materials that come from Canada and Mexico that we don't really think about. It's not just about avocados. That all of those are going to raise the price.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, just think back during COVID when a 2x4 was like $100. A 2x4. It was ridiculous. A sheet of plywood
I
was
just
$400.
I saw in CNBC that $10,000, the approximate cost, increased cost to build a house with all of these tariffs adjustments
Yeah.
on the cost. I mean,
Yeah,
you're talking
and then
about
yeah, and then
cost.
blow that out to the
Right,
final consumer price, and it's probably
right.
$30,000 or something. Labor's going to go up. Well, that's the other thing is you have workforce reductions, whether you want them or not, with some of these new policies. Who's gonna swing the hammer? You're gonna have to pay more for the labor because there's labor. We already had a labor shortage and we're just making it worse. So I'm a little concerned about the new construction industry, which is sad because that's what we really need. We need constant new construction because we are so far behind in our housing supply. It's unreal. Like, I forget how many millions of units behind we are and where we need to be trending. I mean, every year, I think this is an old stat, but like back in 2010, let's say, up till then, we were doing a 1.5 million new housing starts. And then at that point, because of the recession around 2008, we were only doing a half a million. So we were a million behind for almost a decade. And we're not even back to 1.5 million yet. So we're still not even producing enough to meet the demand. And there's like a multi millions of units in backlog that need to be. So honestly, affordability is going to be the biggest problem. It's
Yeah,
not. It's not
it's already a
immediate
problem. Yeah,
affordability. Like
I
who can
agree.
afford these houses?
So time is running out. Last question for you. And I mean, 24 years in the industry, a lot of experience. And let's go back 24 years from now, and let's assume that you're meeting your Stephen Jr. 24 years ago. And with all of the experience that you have now, what would be that advice that you would give him?
I would tell him to build and guard his database with his life. That was the biggest mistake that I made. Of course, I moved around, so it ended up not being an issue. But I was from a town, very small town, where not everybody, but my family was well known. And I could have done really, really well. Like, had I stayed there and developed my database, I would have done really well. I'm glad I left. I left 18 years ago and never looked back. But that was something that it was like a facepalm moment years later where I'm like, oh my gosh, if I would have kept my database up, like I know so many people, or there are so many people that at least know my name, that I could have been pumping them for referrals. And so yeah, if I could go back, I would say you've got to build your database and never let it go because it's got value. The people are your value as an agent.
Yeah, absolutely. Steven, thank you so much for being in our show. It's a pleasure. It was fun. I mean, you're amazing. You have a lot of experience on the acquisition emergence. And by the way, for people that are listening or watching this, please don't hesitate to reach out if they or someone wants to have a consultation about mergers and acquisitions, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Steven. Thank you so
Thanks so
much.
much.